Good morning. How is this wonderful morning? I can't hear you. How are you this lovely morning? Philela Namenkos, thank you very much. So I was asked to talk to you about my story of being an entrepreneur and as well as just share a few pointers. So I thought the best way to capture that is actually just telling you the story and you'll pick up the pointers as you go along. 2015, I got an opportunity to go into business. I was employed having a nice office, air conditioned, a PA, and life was good. And the opportunity to go into a business was something that was a leg up, and I decided, okay, let me try and do this. Now, in the space I was at the time, I was actually nurturing other SMMEs to grow their businesses. And I then decided, okay, let me go for it. I took up the opportunity and I wrote the business plan. And after I wrote the business plan, I went around seeking for funding. And at that time, I was still a bit concerned. Do I go fully on it? Do I do it part-time? That type of thing. And I went to the bank. I went to my bank, and I still remember it was a Monday. I talked to them about this business opportunity that I have. I showed them the financials. I gave them the business plan that I'd written. So on the Wednesday, my banker calls me. He then says, we've had a look at it. We can give you 50% of what you're looking for. You just have to come with us out 50%. And I'm stunned. It's a bank. And they're offering a black man 50% of a couple of millions that I'm looking at. And I get encouraged. And the business that I was buying with my partner then advised me, the previous owner, that go to my bank and see what they say. So I said, okay, I'll take it up. I went to the bank, and a week later, they called me and said, we can give you 65% of the business of the money you're looking for. You have to come up with the other 35%. And now I am getting more comfortable and excited about the whole thing. So I decided to go to the DFIs. I don't want to mention names, but I'm still waiting for a response from one of them 2 years later. And then I hear about Old Mutual's Masisi and a fund. And I pick up the phone and I speak to a consultant, and she says, okay, send me what you have and let's probably have a discussion after I've read what you've written. And we go through the process. It was in September when we started the whole conversation with them in 2015. And the 7th of December, they called me and they said, we will give you 88% of what you're looking at. And I was over the moon, and we managed to put together the remainder of the 12%, and in 2016 March, we take over the business. And we now suddenly are faced with the challenge of having 53 employees and having to keep the factory running. And one of the first lessons I learned is that there is no thing as having quick wealth. You have to work at it and harness the time value of money. All of a sudden, we needed to think about weekly wages. We had to think about making sure that we have stock to ensure that we are producing, and many other things. And all of a sudden, we're having to deal with unions. We're having to deal with all of these lovely things. And I find myself sleeping much lesser. And I find myself, without going to the gym, starting to lose a bit of weight because I'm constantly working, forgetting to eat and all of that. Now, in the process, I then look at our business and I'm looking, okay, let me look at financial models and how can we do things and that. And we look at one of the products that we are doing. And we then say that how do we try and control our factors of production? Because along the route of running a business, you then understand that keeping your cost in check is one of the major things. And your market is also quite cost sensitive. So I look at this product and I then decide we need to look at the possibility of making the product ourselves. And in that space, we are thinking, okay, it's something we can do at a later stage, and we're thinking we're still new. It's probably too soon. And the market does something interesting in September, about 7 months into us being in the business. The product that we're talking about is foam, the foam that you're actually sitting on in your couches and all of that. And there's an explosion that happens in the US at BASF, at one of their plants, which produce the main chemical in this product. And 2 weeks later, another explosion happens in Germany, and the prices start to rocket of foam, and it affects our business not so beautifully. So I then say, how do we go back to our plan of making this foam much sooner? And I call a friend of mine who's a chemical engineer, and I said, how soon can you do this? What can you do? At that moment, he's an entrepreneur, only in heart, not physically. He's still employed. So I show him the numbers and I said, look, help me to start this thing up, and you can consult, and we can take it from there. And I show him the projections of how much we're spending at that moment, and as well as how much it's going to cost us if we make it ourselves. October, we meet with the university, we finalize the formulations of us making our foam, and everything looks hunky-dory. We then say, okay, when are we going to start? What are we going to need? The chemicals, fine. We find a supplier with a very good price, and it's in China. And we order our test samples, and we pay for the test samples. A week later, the test samples arrive. Take them to the university is happy, and we make a few tests, and we're happy, we're excited. And it's now the beginning of December, and it's like, all right, we're going for it. We're gonna need to buy a nice amount of chemicals so that we can produce without any disturbances for about 3 to 4 months, and we'll keep on ordering. So we go back to the same guys who had supplied us with the first test samples, and everything is hunky-dory, and we put an order for these chemicals, and it was a sizable amount. The chemicals are due to arrive in end of January, beginning February, and we go on holiday, we're coming back, and we know that we're going to be hitting it. And then we have a snag. The chemicals are not arriving. February, the chemicals are not arriving, and we try and engage with the company. They duck and dive, and we then say, okay, we're going to have to do it. We then source the chemicals in the country. We're going to be paying about 40-odd rand a kg for these chemicals, and in the country now we have to source them at about 60-odd rand, which actually affects our cost of production. What I'll tell you, to make the long story short, is that we haven't received our chemicals from China as yet, and there's no hope that we'll receive them. But we've been producing. We've been going ahead, and I'm excited to tell you that we are making our own beds, and we're making our own beds from the foam that we make. So I think the main thing is we have to persevere, and we have to get pruned, as you're seeing in the slide, and in those processes, we are then building on what is to be in the future. What I think inspired me is growing up, we moved to a house. I was born in Umtata. We moved to a house in Northcrest in 1988, and we planted, my brothers and I, a peach tree. And we used to see this tree growing over a period of time. And at that time, it didn't make much sense to me. We moved from the house in 1994 just as the fruits were starting to come out, and we didn't actually get to enjoy them. And for me, that was a life lesson that things don't happen overnight. It's a process, and you keep on watering it, and you have to prune it. If you don't prune it, it will not give you the fruits that you're yielding. We went back to Mthatha, I think it was 1999, and we went via the house, and the peach tree was still there. And we were able to still have some of the peaches that were planted in 1988. So all in all, the point I'm bringing is that wealth is not something that you get overnight. You work at it. Thank you.